everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Women's Show here on Civic Space TV. And today, and excitedly, we are saying happy birthday to Uganda. Of course, it's 4 weeks before 9th October, but we wanted to start the celebrations early. And today we are looking at, how far we have come as a country. 60 years is a very long time. That's almost, or we are having, 40 years to get to a century, to make 100 years. So we are very excited here. And today we would like to analyze how far have we come? What is the social development of this thing we called Uganda that they birthed at independence? Has it been good for us? Do we look back at the days before colonialism and say maybe they were much more better? What does this thing independence mean? This freedom that we aspire to? When our forefathers, ascended that ink to paper and said Uganda is now free, Uganda is now independent, what did they envision in their minds? And are we here? Today, to discuss these issues, I'm joined by a very wonderful panel, and I will allow them to introduce themselves. We will start with you, Joanna. Introduce yourself, your organization, and what you do.
Thank you so much, Marion. And it's been a while since last year, but I'm so excited to be back.
I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Yes, so my name is Joanna Atukunda, and I am a founder and team leader at Uplift Slum Africa. I work with young people in the slum dwelling areas of Kampala and outside Kampala to make sure they have the issues of SRHR addressed and they can access quality education. But I'm also into a lot of leadership spaces, and I think that's exactly why I am here. And thank you so much for hosting me, and I look forward to having this amazing conversation on independence and Uganda.
Okay, Joyce.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. My name is Joyce Adikini. I work with the Forum for Democratic Change and also the People's Government. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to listening to my new friends here, Joanna and my colleague in the right.
I'm Sara Birungi.
Yes.
I am the Executive Director of Smart Transitions. It's an organization that works in economic agency, climate change, and advocating for SRHR for vulnerable youth and women. And thank you very much for inviting me, because I think we need to talk about these issues even before independence, how we have been, and 60 years. We need to track and see where we are and what we can do. So it's a very timely discussion, and I'm honored to be here with these other lovely ladies.
We're also honored to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So we're diving into the conversation. 60 years, 40 years to reach 100 years. That's no small thing. That's a very big achievement. We even have institutions in this country that are making 100 years. For example, Makerere University is making 100 years. A number of secondary schools have made 100 years. So we have been, we've spent quite some time in this whole creation of a nation, and we have a history. Ever since the colonial masters decided to put us different tribes and different nations together into this thing called Uganda. And today we just want to analyze if this thing Uganda is working for us. I'll start with you, Joanna, on what do you think that at the time of independence our forefathers or the founding fathers of this thing called Uganda thought independence would be? What were they trying to get independent from? And do you think if they were alive today, they would have said, I'm glad I fought for this thing, and and now we are here. You get.
Okay, thank you so much, Marion, for the question. So I think when our forefathers signed this independence paper and said, okay, this is what we're signing, first of all, they had gone through it, like they seem to have gone through it all. as of when they were just there living their normal lives, and then the white man comes, they live into they were in the crisis before the colonialism, and then colonial times come, and then they live in that moment where it seemed like they were not going to recover from this colonialism. And then at a time just before they would sign independence, they had dreams of seeing this colonialism fade. And so when they get into the post-colonialism and say quotes in quotes, we're into the golden time, they were envisioning a Uganda that will have independence in all sectors, independence in a way that, because when you're talking about social development, we're talking about making sure that all the vulnerable people can actually access equal rights when it comes to politics, social services, healthcare, everything that has to do with their social life. And so they were envisioning a Uganda where the vulnerable people, the women and the youth will have a voice, and not just have a voice, but a voice that looks at equality, at equity, at everything that has to do with inclusion. And so, of course, there's a lot of diversity that was created when it comes to tribalism. So I think they were saying, can we wake up and see a Uganda that is one? Can we wake up and see a Uganda where we're not going to have war as we elect leaders? Can we have a Uganda that anyone can walk anywhere and buy whatever they want smiling? Because at that time we had as per the readings, I know that white kids would go to different schools. Some of them would even go to attend schools in Nairobi, so they can't attend schools here, and yet it is the white person that had actually built some of these schools. So they were looking at a Uganda where we can have even more schools for vulnerable people to attend. Can someone be able to go to school and afford it and have the quality education that they need? So for me, I think that's when they were signing that paper, they were excited at the future that Uganda is going to have. And now, 60 years down the road, of course, you can say between 1971 to 85, we were still in recovery mode. But then 30 how many years after that, where for me it looks like some sectors are still struggling to recover, although we have just a skeleton. I am not sure about the sensible flesh of the skeleton as far as people accessing the social development, the services as far as social development is concerned. But at least we have taken some strides, though I think we are still in recovery mode, because I think if they would come back here, their sentences would have a but.
A but.
Yes, like.
But do you think they'll be generally happy about?
For some, they would be happy. For because I know there are people who really suffered at the hand of a colonial master. But I also think when you signed a paper 60 years ago, right now you're thinking, after 60 years, I should step in this land and I feel like I'm in heaven. Yeah, but it's 60 years down the road, and I think most of the sentences still have a but in them, which kind of erases
everything.
Not everything.
When they say you have but erases everything that you said before.
Yes. We will be in a gray area, but as for the shade of gray, we will see when they. Yes, we get on. Thank you.
Joyce, let's start from where Joanna said and the things that I noted. The dream of one country, one nation, in the words of your party president. Former MIA, I will be. Your former party president. One Uganda, one people. Equality for all. After 60 years, do you feel that is true? This was a country that was so many, over 40 ethnic tribes brought together. 60 years, do you think they have the right to call themselves a nation, one people, one Uganda?
Well, thank you very much. just for corrections, the one Uganda, one people is not just a slogan of my party president or former. It is actually the FDC slogan, one Uganda, one people. And the reason why we have that slogan is because the FDC was formed at a time when we felt the country was getting disintegrated, and we wanted to bring people together, reform, and bring people together in the spirit of one nation, one Uganda, one people, where there is no nepotism, no tribalism, no segregation, no abuse of human rights, and so on. And that, of course, answers the question, because we are not yet there. That is why we are pushing, let's be one Uganda, one people. So yes, 60 years down the road, for me, what I can say about the colonialism and post-colonial era is that there was, during the colonial era, the leadership and management of the country was in the hands of the colonialists. It only changed to the hands of the Africans who still colonized part of their own country. In other words, power kept changing hands, but within cocoons. So when someone from the north has that power, the person from the central or west feels like they're not part of it.
Yeah.
So they come with their own army and suppress the rest of the country. Then when the other ones take over, they also come with their own army and suppress the rest of the country. And we have remained in that state to this date. We have, of course, there are certain things that were working better during the colonial era, and there are certain things that were not. Some of it, of course, that I am very sure our forefathers that fought for the independence were looking at was freedom of economic freedoms, freedom of ownership of land, freedom of exploration of economic resources, freedom of education, quality education, and all those things, which because the main purpose of the colonialism was to come and exploit our resources and also exploit us. So we're more like workers for their sake. So the people who fought for the independence were trying to get rid of that. But let us have the freedom to exploit our own resources and manage those resources ourselves, and also fighting things like slavery. Now, after the post-colonial era, when you look at the country now, yes, slavery is not there, but we are enslaving our own selves. Our own brothers and sisters are going to United Arab Emirates, they are going to those Arab countries to look for jobs, and they are being treated as slaves. There is a lot of human trafficking, and most of the individuals are involved are actually in our governments, and the governments are not even mentioning anything. So yes, we fought slavery, but we are back to it in another way or the other. We changed the format of slavery. Then when you look at economic freedom, we sent the colonialists away so that we can manage and exploit our own resources, but we brought them back. They're the ones running the industries. All our banking systems are run by the foreigners. Our local banks were all closed and suffocated. So anyway, we are not independent. We do not have control of our economy, and yet that is what we're pushing for when we were saying, no, colonialists, please let us manage our country. So either way, they're still managing us in another angle. Then when you look at institutions like health institutions and academic institutions, the quality of education has deteriorated. My father is now 92 years. I think by then he studied up to P6. But when you look at his intelligence of P6 and the intelligence of
University graduate.
of a university graduate of today, they're two things apart. So we have moved back and forth, and a lot of things are not tying up. It seems we are not even ready to be a nation. We have reached a level where when someone from another region dies, another region is celebrating. So we are not together at all. We have really, we are tripping to a stage where I think at some point we're just going to have xenophobia within the country, and one group of people will wake up one day and slaughter another group of people. There was too much tension during the 2021 elections. There was too much tension. Kampala was toxic. It was certain tribes were feeling insecure in certain parts of the country where you feel like, I think I need to pack and go because anything is going to happen. If anything happens, they're likely to burn my building. Some people were recording videos saying, we are going to burn you, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. And when you look at the cultural institutions that are supposed to, of course, work together, because Uganda was formed by, we have 56 tribes, and all at the formation of the country, I don't know if there was consensus, but it seems some entities were not ready. They want we still have what they call federalism. They want to manage themselves. And we are here saying, separation. And we're insisting that, no, you see, we are a country, so let us be Uganda, but we are not, we are saying, this one was our land, this one was our resources. We are the ones supposed to be entitled to this. So we need, I think, at some point to revisit the whole nation thing and rebuild it in the same spirit. Because right now, it's like there is a certain group that owns Uganda, and then there's another group that is struggling to be part of it.
Okay, that's good. That's actually
Uganda
a good.
A and Uganda B.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Sarah, just to be clear, Joyce was saying, and what she has said, that there's one group struggling to be part of Uganda, and there's a group that is part of Uganda, you know. And don't you think that is quite true? For example, if we go to places like Karamoja that seem to be completely isolated from the rest of the country, you know, with notions such as we will not wait for Karamoja to develop. For 25 years of the LRA war, northern Uganda seemed not to be part of this country. There was Uganda, and then there was that place where Konyi is. You get?
Golo.
Yes. And if you look at, you know, right now we have the conversation of maybe the people, the Renzuru kingdom, the fight, the talks of separation from this thing called Uganda. Not forgetting that also some years ago, that was the thinking among at least the old Baganda folk, that we don't want to be, this thing was forced on us. We don't have a belonging to it. There's people have their own, the people pushing for this thing have their own objectives that do not, their own interests that do not really align with ours. And therefore, we don't want to be part of this thing anymore. It's not working for us. What do you say about that? Do you think that the Uganda that we have now works for us? And if it doesn't, is there any way to make it work? It has been 60 years. We should have gotten it right by now. We've been living together in this thing. And it's like when even if you were brought into a house, you know, surely when you've been married for 60 years, you should have a working relationship. Right? A way you handle your disputes, a way you handle everything, a way you distribute resources, you should have gotten it right by now. Or do we need more time? Or will it never work? What do you think?
I think just to continue from what Joyce had said, actually it's true. We have a Uganda that wants to be part of the Uganda that has the resources. And there's a rumor that there is Uganda A or Uganda B. You're either in Uganda A or you're in Uganda B. So if you want, for example, to get things like your passport, that's when you really get to know who is in your network. But what you have talked about Karamoja, it's very, very sad. I've been privileged to be in Karamoja a couple of times, and there's work we are going to start doing there. And you see there's a lot of potential in Karamoja, but you really wonder the things that you hear about the development, the resources, there's so many NGOs that are there. You can't equate it. You cannot actually see that something has been done. Because even us, we're trying to understand, where do we begin from? How do we see that we're able to cause some part of change to these people? And then when you go to Kasese, I've also been glad to be there. And that was actually the period when they had just had the massacre. So we went like, I think 8 months after. So it was really heated. You could tell people are annoyed. People don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of security forces. So you really wonder, how is Uganda going to be in the next 10 years from now? Because now we're celebrating 60. How are we going to see that the development that we want is going to change? Joanna and Joyce have talked about the education systems, but a lot still needs to be done. Because right now, where Uganda is right now, we don't want to talk about it, like how she had mentioned earlier. Some people are celebrating a certain tribe, someone had died, then some people are rejoicing. So those are the things that we have to interrogate right now. Why are people on social media outwardly just saying that I do not care, you come and get me with your drone, me, I have said what I've said, but this person lost someone in the elections of Uganda. You're not going to tell them that I'm supposed to be happy. What are we able to do right now so that we do not have issues that we have seen in other African countries like South Africa? Because I think we're almost at the tipping point. It's not to scare people, but we need to really interrogate, what are those things that are missing? If we say we want to look at the 60 years, can we have a roadmap? We're always told to write strategic plans. So is there a strategic plan for how Uganda is with its independence? Those burning issues that people have, how can we make them better? Yes, we have had a lot of changes of how people can have development in terms of the end of gender-based violence, but we still have these things coming up. But what are we going to do about it? Are we always going to be in meetings? Because we are known as NGO people. We just sit in nice offices and we go to nice hotels. But the real people in the slums, in Karamoja, the refugees, they're having their challenges. They're not seeing that development. So I think before October, we really need to see that Uganda is better. How can we look at those challenges and we really go to the root cause? Because if we don't look at those root causes, we're just going to always have lip service for everything we are doing. And one thing I've also noticed in Uganda, because of the shrinking space, when you're trying to do good, you always put against government. You're trying to change government. No, you're trying to change the things they're supposed to be doing. But for them, they're not doing them. So when you come out, they think you're trying to take over their space. So we really need to work with government, and we make sure that these things like health and education, very basic things, they need to be given to people. Instead of just saying that, yes, we have health centers, but there is nothing. The same person in the health center is the one who has a private clinic, and he's making a lot of money. He comes this side for 2 hours, then he goes back to his thing, and he even takes the medicine from the health center to his private clinic. So you see all these things. And actually, I remember on Twitter, someone said something, I've forgotten what it is, but it was saying that if Uganda is to have the right systems, I think all of us, we can't survive. Because truthfully, for me, I will say the truth. There are some things I have been able to get in Uganda because I have a network.
Yes.
But if we are trying to do things okay in Uganda, it will be difficult for all of us. So how can we interrogate those things? Getting a passport, for example, express, you're paying 400,000. You have to wait. They tell us you're supposed to get it in less than 3 days, but you get it over in 2 months. So what is that development? You go to the health center. We work with refugees as my organization. They tell them that they are going to give them a free hospital in the slums in Zambia, but they go there. The women have to either bribe, they have to sleep with the men. So you see all this. You're saying it is free, but it's not free. Then you go to Karamoja, you see the divide. There's development this side, but then when you really see the people, you don't feel it. And it's really sad that other people from other tribes are the ones who are benefiting from Karamoja. So it really, really hurts. Now the real person hasn't understood that this place is blessed. They have minerals, they have oil, but another person is coming from Kampala, from Bushenyi, and
in the name of this thing called Uganda, to steal away your
Yes. So we really need to interrogate these things. A lot of lip service has been done, but Uganda has done great, but it has to just really go back on the roadmap and make sure that the challenges that people are facing, we don't face them. We don't want to have a Uganda whereby we are fighting. I don't want to fight with her. I don't want to go to, I don't know where Joanna is from. I don't want to go to her village and then we start fighting. You get? We really need things to be okay, because it's like we're almost there whereby people are even asking you, so where do you come from? Now we can't hang out. So we really need to be serious with those things that we hear from our networks.
Sure.
Yes.
Can we survive if things work properly?
Yes.
So this, Joanna, this dysfunctionality that is function.
Yes.
So, according to Sara, it's not working, but in a way it is working.
Yes.
It's in its dysfunctionality.
It is functioning.
Yes, it is functioning. It's dysfunctionality.
Yes.
And it becomes very hard for you to try to make it the dysfunctional that is functional to detangle it and try to make it the way that you want. I guess what I'm trying to say is perhaps you have heard of the rhetoric. Maybe we're going about it the wrong way. Do you think that perhaps maybe the script that was given to us by our colonial masters may have to change in the near future? People have had conversations about, I think you've had conversations of let us decolonize, let us what? That what necessarily the white man says is right is not, it may be right in his context, but not necessarily right in ours, For example, like Sarah said, you see, whereas we can say that, you see, let us have a corruption-free environment, corruption perhaps may mean different things according to the context of different societies, that when you go for the network kind of corruption, you might not succeed, but maybe you should look at uprooting another kind of corruption. You get very complex,
It is.
because this is what we have known, and most of our definitions of our systems come from the white man's definition. So the rhetoric out there for now, the Pan-Africanist movement, is decolonize this, decolonize that, decolonize your mind, decolonize this. Do you agree with that notion? And how exactly that someone come from decolonizing their mind and everything that they do? Because first of all, my smartphone is from a white man. My jeans and actually whatever I'm pushing on is not original. It's from a white man. So if you're telling me decolonize, my hairstyle sometimes that I put on are someone's hair. Your shoes. So how do you go about this business of decolonizing, but also how do you find systems that work for our own African context? Or are we also just giving an excuse because we are lazy about doing the right? We don't want to do the right thing, so you want to blame it on everything else and say, you see, the white man's system. But really, if you were deliberate about correcting certain things, maybe you would get it right. I hope I'm not confusing you, but just
I'll make sense of everything. Yes. So thank you, Mariam. For me, there's this functional and dysfunctional system, and then decolonizing the mind, and whatever comes with the systems, you putting on a shoe that is from the UK or China or where has nothing to do with how you treat a tribe mate in your country. And because we're in a world that is a global village. There is no country, absolutely no country, that survives on only its resources. Nothing. So if we are going to say that everyone consumes what they produce, then we are not also looking at the bigger picture of having a global village, of being able to go to another country and you're looked at as a human being. Because if I'm going to say I don't want anything from the UK, everything I'm going to use, I'm going to manufacture it from here, then it so means that even when I go to their country, they will also resent me and they'll want to use their own things. And I think for a bigger picture, that can't work. So we come to decolonizing our minds, but also when we were creating these systems, what was like from the time of independence, what was their objective? And what is our objective as of now? Are we still on the script of objectives and how they're going to be implemented and the goal and everything functioning as a system? I think for me, that's where we get off the script. If the objective was, we are talking about social development, can everyone access healthcare? Quality healthcare? Can everyone access education? And not just education, we are looking at holistic quality education. Can everyone have a political say that is not misquoted, that is not taken into corners just to make them guilty of not supporting the government? Can we have people access legal services at like for free? Because I mean, as a judge, as a lawyer, you are paid to do these things. Why are people paying a lot of money that they do not even earn in court to get bail? Why are people lining up for things they're not even going to get? Like a pregnant woman will go to the hospital and spend a whole day in a line, but they cannot even get the list of medication that they're supposed to get. So we're looking at what was the objective of us getting the independence. Are we still aligned to the same objective, or people are working for their own personal gains? So if we're looking at education, I think the education then that she talked about that the father received, it was from the same schools that were brought by colonialists. But right now, the schools that are traditional and were giving that have also been infiltrated, that it is the political leaders who have their own agenda that actually determine the decisions and the run of these schools. I have been able to attend several meetings in different schools, and a political leader who has probably 2 or 3 kids that they support in these schools earns over 40 million that is not taxed and has a government car, where stands up and says, we have no problem if you increase tuition because we want the best for our kids. Hell no, you're competing with a peasant in this school, a peasant who literally has to sell a cow every single term. And this is also the lucky peasant that has the cow. There is also another who has to depend on seasons, because social development looks at really the vulnerable person. And if we are going to have the vulnerable person supported, then we are not doing a lot as far as functional systems are concerned. And this Karamoja argument, I have done a research in southwestern Uganda, where every Ugandan thinks they are privileged. We reached this school and the head teacher and the pupils and the teachers ran away. They had never seen a car. They had never seen it. This is southwestern Uganda we are talking about.
Yes, and we let me fast forward you up right there, so that we can continue the same conversation after our break. We would really be interested in hearing that particular story of how things are quite different. So we will now go for a break, but when we come back, we will continue this conversation.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Hello viewers, and welcome back from our break. So we are going to dive right in where we stopped. You're telling us about where you went and people had never seen Aka before. So,
Yes. So it is this school in west, somewhere in Bugamba or Rugando. Yeah, Rugando in Mbara. Yes, it's still in Mbara district. And so when they arrived for this research, so it was a research on comprehensive sexuality education, and they all took off to the garden. So they thought it was a government car that had come to do some auditing, but also they said, how did the car get here? And because for some, if you didn't have like a really big car that has like a stable 4-wheel drive, you do not get to that school. You do not. Yes. So the inequalities are so visible that, and that is just a school in a village setting. Now, even when you come here to Kampala, I keep telling people that Katanga is just below Makere. As a matter of fact, it's a Makere community. An institution, yes, it's on Makere land. This is an institution that is making 100 years of success, of producing big people. But when you're going to Katanga, you still leave the car somewhere and jump trenches to actually access these people. So if we're talking about social development, where is the development? And yes, if we're talking about probably a slum that is somewhere in Wakiso or far away from, yes, but this is like the middle of Kampala. I mean, Wandega is just a suburb in the middle of Kampala. So this script of functional systems has to be twisted. And this is why every time people have been bringing up this argument that one person dies and then people are rejoicing, for me, I'm looking at it from this perspective of the person who has lost their people. Their relatives might probably never understand what it means for a child to wake up and have no food to go to school. Let me just put it blunt as it is. I don't think there is a child of a politician in this country who wakes up and understands that another child somewhere actually goes to school, spends a whole day on an empty stomach, comes back home, has to fetch water, has to fetch firewood. These are like natural resources, like water. Every Ugandan should have piped water. So I don't think there is a child of a minister here who wakes up every day, is driven to school, gets back to school. Of course, you can't deny that we will never be equal or something like that, but that child will never understand. So when someone is rejoicing that their father has probably passed on, someone in their mind is thinking, even these ones can die. Like, really? But even then, even when they die, their child will probably never know about this bad life. So this minister who sits in the cabinet and is discussing social development, and all these papers end up in boardrooms of all these ministries. I am always asking, what ministries have big buildings that have boardrooms, that have everything? Why do they even hold workshops and spend millions of money? The other day I was in a friend's office who is a youth chairperson in one of the counties, in one of the districts here, and I saw like a book on the People's Parliament, like what it is about, to understand the Parliament of Uganda. And I'm like, this is right here in someone's office when it is supposed to be taken back to their villages, no one in this, no villager in this country understands the policies that we have. We have a social development policy that was done in 2016 and is supposed to be implemented up until 2020. But who knows about it? Every day you see government cars in villages doing some kind of researches. Where do those researches end? Where do those policies end? What is the goal for social development for this country? Women are still dying on the roadside of hospitals. You can't even find paracetamol as low as 500 shillings. And then now fuel is up there. And then groceries. If just Mare soap is going to cost someone 10,000, someone who barely makes $50 in a day, and soap is 10,000, we are headed for the worst if we don't go back to the script of the objectives.
Seems very bleak for us at 60, right?
Yes.
So, Joyce, just to switch up the conversation a little bit, because it seems we are going into a very somber mood right now. We were discussing during the break about how it seems that what we are hanging by a thread and on the goodwill of external forces. And you were talking about how most of the roads we have in our municipalities are because of the World Bank.
Yeah.
And you will see that I think most of our donations and grants we get, actually we survive on loans as a country, you know, from foreign bodies and all that. And there have been conversations since independence about if African countries are actually sovereign countries, because it seems like perhaps even most of our troubles come from there. It seems like most of our economic policies are made somewhere else and then they're imposed on us. So if you're a government, an African government who wants to stay in power, you must abide. If you do not abide, things will not go well for you, surely. They might not remove you from government, but you will crumble as a nation because you will have no economic muscle. You know, for most of these countries, we have been through wars and most of them cannot survive alone. If you're to tell them that they are solely surviving on the taxation of their people, they will crumble because most of their people are poor. The taxes most of them come from multinationals, you know, also which come from their own governments with hidden agendas, so they say. So after 60 years of independence, given that background, can we say that we are actually an independent country if our economic policies are decided from another country and then imposed on you? When the IMF says that you must enforce the structural development programs, you must privatize most of your national institutions, can you then call yourself truly an independent country?
Well, thank you very much. I think I will not want to hang so much into the colonialists and the international bodies and their interests and what they impose on us. Right? Because we got where we are through struggle, getting them off the board and saying, let's run our country, okay? Meaning, if we still want to, if they tell us privatize your institutions, we can still fight, you get? We can still struggle and say, no, this is what we are giving. We can only give this much. Beyond this, we are not crossing. So it is deliberate. Unless we are saying that, yes, our forefathers fought for independence and we are giving it back. Unless that is what we are saying. So we cannot keep crying about, you see, colonialists this, colonialists that. It is like a child who was born premature, crying at 60 that you forgive me, don't judge me because you say I spent the first 2 months in the incubator. No, we got there, we got out of that incubator so many years ago that we no longer have excuses for running back to that as a reason for not being where we are. What is our own national policy as a country? Do we have one? Do we have any value system? Do we have our own values that we are promoting as a country that we had, but then someone came and we changed it? Where is it? Where is that document where we had drafted with our own economic policies and the things that we want to do for the country? Then somebody came and put us in a gunpoint in a corner somewhere and we changed it. I have not seen it because most of the policies that we have that are being imposed on us are actually good policies, but they are not making ends because the people who are supposed to do implementation are not interested in pushing things forward. Within our own country, the government has tried to introduce some social development programs. If I can give one example for livelihood, we've seen Abonaba Gagawale, it came and died. Then they named it to NADS. NADS collapsed. Now they are on parish development model. So every time we introduce our own economic livelihood programs, we collapse them on our own because politicians instead run to use it as a means of, as campaign slogans. And every time there is an election, they go there and campaign and you say, you see, we are bringing for you this and that. Then after they have gone, nothing comes to materialize. And the institutions that are supposed to implement these programs are actually destroyed. We destroyed the cooperatives that were holding people together in livelihood programs. Agricultural institutions were all destroyed. So the farmers do not have a clear path. Everyone is planting their own thing, and we expect the livelihood programs of government to thrive. How is it going to thrive when we have destroyed the institutions that are supposed to help them prosper?
True.
We destroyed the cultural institutions that are supposed to be helping the family, rebuilding families. Because if you have a broken family system, you cannot have citizens that know their roles. We have taken off civic education from our education system. When I was looking at the current social development program of government 2022, they have just said they are going to develop and implement a national education program to promote civic awareness and teach for families and citizens about their roles and responsibilities and their rights. To be honest, at 60, we are just thinking of drafting something to teach people to understand their role as citizens. And yet we are doing that is on paper. On real practice, the civil society organizations that are trying to educate people to promote civic awareness are being suffocated. So in other words, we are actually our own hypocrites. We are not doing the right thing deliberately. World Bank gives you money to go construct roads, and then you construct a kilometer at 9 billion shillings. So is it really World Bank or IMF that is a problem, or it is our own corruption tendencies? Because even if they were imposing certain policies on us, if we were using our resources deliberately to develop the infrastructures that we need to sustain social development, we would be very far. Decent employment. Is it because of World Bank and IMF that we do not have a minimum wage? That we still have people working, I think, for free? The other day I was looking at our fellow young people who move with these trucks that are collecting garbage in the city. And I imagined how much they earn per day. I was provoked to ask a colleague that how much do you think these boys earn? They are so committed. They carry garbage with their hands.
No gloves.
No gloves, no nothing. Decency in employment. How much do they earn? And someone told me, I think maybe they could be earning maybe 3,000 shillings per day. You get? But the people who are using them actually can fail to pay them, and they have nothing to do about it. Why? Because there are so many in the streets. If you don't work today, they will go and pick another person and use that person. So we do not even have a decent employment system. you graduate from Makerere and then someone employs you and all they're paying is 200,000 shillings. Why? Because you have no alternative. And then another group is running out of the country to go and work as maids. And some of them, I'm told, are being forced to do into prostitution, sleeping with animals and all those things. So we do not have any decency as young people. And as a country, we don't have any national social value chain. We have degraded to a level
But
that...
don't you think the constitution is supposed to be that social value?
Yes, and when you talk about the constitution, and it is precisely part of the reasons why I do not want to refer back to the colonialists and their program. We have rewritten our constitution so many times. Ever since we came from independence.
But also, who knows about the constitution of the people that are suffering? Who knows about it?
We keep changing it to suit the situation. Okay, when we want to have our president rule forever, we go and amend and change. So if there was any article that was left there in 19...
it's something that we don't, I don't know.
If there was any
that we don't hold.
No excuse for that.
If there was any article that was left there in 1962 when we're getting independence, I'm sure by now we shall have removed it if it is not working for us. What is it that has failed? It is ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have we given up the fight and we are now giving up what we got in 1962 back to the colonials, saying, no, we want money, so since we are so greedy and we can't do without your money, we are willing to do whatever you want, please give us the money.
Give us the money and come and
do everything that you want to do.
Yeah.
I was looking at the budget. You know, when you talk about social development, there are three key things that you have to look at. I've talked about the institutions, I've talked about the the policies, and now you look at the budget. How much are we investing towards social development? So when you look at of course it is a cross-cutting sector that has been scattered in different, into governance and security, I don't know, human capital development. But do you know that in the latest budget that we have, the 2021-2022, 95% of the budget is remaining in central government. And how much is it? It is 156 billion. But if only 5% is going to the local government. Yeah. So what is it that it is going to do in central government? It is the local government that is supposed to oversee the implementation of these programs. Yeah. So the central government, all that they need to do is policing and overseeing what the local government is doing, is implementing. They are the ones that are taking 95% of the budget, and it has been reduced by 20%. So it seems our national interest is not around social development as a country. Yeah, and we cannot continue hanging on to the colonialists and the foreign, because every entity has its own interests. And I keep telling people, if Uganda was as developed as USA, we would be doing to USA the same thing that USA is doing to other countries. Because even as poor as we are, we want to manage Rwanda, we want to manage Congo, Tanzania, we want to be the ones in Sudan negotiating peace, we want to tell Uhuru what to do in Kenya, as poor as we are. So what would have happened if we had resources? So it is by default that any government, anyone who has capacity, will want to impose themselves on you. It is up to you to struggle and make sure that you overcome what they're imposing on you.
We beg and then make decisions for the neighbors.
It is as blunt as that. No one should lie to us that, hey, you see, these guys are bad. Even us, a politician who has more money in your village imposes during COVID-19 that we had lockdown, but there are certain people who did not have lockdown.
Yes.
For them, they were moving. In my village, police was being run by a certain man. When he wants music to play the whole night in a certain place, it plays. He's the one who was direct. It's not even part of police. It's not in government, but he had money. Okay, so by nature, the human beings are always around their interests. So we need to put we need to put our interests and push it as a country. Unless we do not have which that seems to be the case. Seems our only interest is minting money. So you give us money and the rest we do not care. When we're discussing about bail, the Chief Justice
Determines.
was when he was asked that the president is saying that we should scrap bail for capital offences. What is your say? Do you think he is right? Isn't he trying to overthrow the judiciary? And I was like, no, the president has powers to decide. You get? So the Chief Justice, he doesn't care about the institution for as long as his salary is not threatened. Maybe if the discussion was around, the president is saying
They should cut your salary.
they should cut your salary by this amount.
Maybe he would have given you
yeah, he would have defended. So as Ugandans, we have degenerated to a selfish position. People in leadership positions are now centered around amassing wealth for themselves, and therefore we forget about the national vision which our people who fought for independence had back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sarah, I think we pick up from the issue of value system. The people like Joyce here, politicians always telling us we don't have a national value system. We should get values. You know, you hear Mugisha Mut saying you should look inward. You know, these institutions are not working. Rightly so, because at the end of the day, if you have laws that that you do not respect, highly likely that you're going to break them. It's like being in a home, you know. Of course, there could be enforcement. You could make laws at home, you know. And if no one respects them, even the people who put them there do not respect them, then really they are not laws that anyone is going to enforce or anyone is going to respect. But back to the thing of this thing called the value system. How do people develop value systems? Because everyone talks about value system. Countries should have value system. The Asians have a value system. That's why they are progressing more than us. The Americans have a value system. They have laws that they respect. But I mean, we come from the background where most of these laws we just copy and paste them from a British system. You get, and even the methods of enforcement, the government itself, you know, this whole structure of government, it's not ours. So perhaps no wonder we do not respect it. But again, it seems that we have to play within this system because that is the global system now, you know. Unfortunately, we are not predictable. I don't, maybe you have a different opinion, but the way I see it is that we don't really have a say in what system we belong to or what we do not belong to. They are here. If you do not play into that system, you're isolated as a global nation. So now you are into this thing, perhaps you don't believe in it. You have these laws, you don't believe in them. They tell you democracy, this democracy, it's not working for you. Maybe perhaps you also don't believe in it. Okay? Your forefathers have been ruled by monarchies. Some have been ruled by chiefs.
Yes.
So for you go to the village and you tell them things like they don't understand what you mean by government. Okay, they know they live in Uganda. They know that Museveni is the president. But then when you talk about legislature, Simanyi government, the only time they hear from their MPs is when there's election. They know they have an MP. But apart from asking him for money for school fees and funeral, him to contribute to the funeral, there's no other interaction they have with him. They do not understand you when you say Simanyi bill, Simanyi marriage and divorce bill, Simanyi bichi.
Family policy.
You see, the judicial system that is supposed to enforce this or to decide these cases, the lawyer will tell them, give me 10 million. So that you go to court. The man is barely having food on his table. You want him to get 5 million, 10 million from where? So you have a system that is in place, foreign in nature, but also inaccessible, even in its foreignness, you know. And it doesn't it might affect them negatively, but it doesn't seem to help them. You get it. You have a system that seems to be very alienated from the people it's in quotes ought to serve. You get. So how do you expect people to respect this system? Where do they get these values that are going to help them respect this system that seems foreign, inaccessible, and alien from them? So where do they get this value system exactly so that these institutions work?
I think it's a very challenging thing.
Yeah.
I think we can say it's a catch-22 because you can't really place that we have a value system in Uganda. What we have as the value system, it's what the politicians, it's good you're a politician and how you people understand your language. It's what the politicians tell us.
What does it mean? Yes, what does it mean?
They tell us that, okay, if you vote for me, this is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is what I'll provide for you in the village. So it's like politicians have a way of building their own value system. But as a country, we don't have. Then the other notion that we have is Uganda A, Uganda B, whereby the haves and the have-nots. So when you look at all that, you're trying to figure out
they have their own two different value systems.
Yes.
Also.
you're trying to see how you can help the vulnerable people, but then the government, who is supposed to be your partner, they're also fighting you because you're trying to fit into their value system, but they're not understanding where have you got the money from, who is that donor, because even now we are being told by Ministry of Finance that we shall soon have to declare people who give us money. So when you look at all that, you're trying to see how you can help in a way, how social development can be, but then you're always in that shrinking space. So you really find out that in Uganda we don't have a value system. Yes, you had re-echoed it that Mogisha want to keep saying that how can Uganda have a value system, but it's not there. When you try to begin yours, you're outnumbered. So in Uganda, it's like you have to have allies for everything you're doing, even in social development. As who are in the NGO world with Joanna, you have to maybe have a godfather or a godmother who has been in the NGO world for a while. You tell, I'm going to Katanga, I am going to Karamoja, so that at least they know if something is to happen to Sara, they can help you. You'll be there in the mountains of Moroto and no one will know. For you, they are going to do good and you disappear.
And they take you in a drone.
And then they take you in a drone.
You're dealing in people's gold mines. What are you doing there?
So it's like the value system. You have to create it in our own networks. But we don't have one of the country. And it's a very sad thing.
Yeah.
And it's very sad. Because it's like everyone has to have a small network, and in that network is whereby you have a value system. You have to see how you can work through that. Because me, the value system that really makes me laugh is the one of politicians.
They seem to have their own.
They have their own.
But even different politicians have different value systems.
Yeah, they have their own value systems. It's very interesting. I don't know how you guys do it, but me, I cannot be a politician.
But I'll say even NGO has its own value system. Accountability, integrity, and what very many things that. But do you think it's possible to develop this wholesome value system but a value system that supports the institutions that we have now? Because the reason why we're looking for a value system is so that these institutions work, because institutions are people.
Yes.
So if your people do not have the values to make these, the values are like the fuel into this institution. Its functionality depends on how much people respect. For example, you will see that in America, that even when they had someone who didn't seem to ally to the aspirations of the people, the institutions seem to reject him. But even when the institutions rejected him, majority also did reject him.
Yes.
Because they felt like he was destroying the institutions they felt they had connection to or an attachment to. They saw value in these institutions, and that's why they protected them and voted him out. Now back to our Uganda now. Will there reach a point where we feel attached to these institutions that you can tell your grandma in the village that the judiciary system needs to be protected, and your grandma can see value in protecting it? You get that you can tell the woman in Katanga that you need to have a representative. Maybe the people in Katanga understand, that's why they're always maybe voting opposition. But let us go to, let me say, naturally, sub-region, that you can tell him it's important for us to protect the sanctity of the what? Judiciary. So let us vote for a person who can represent that. Can we reach that point that the values that we have can protect our institutions?
I think we can, but it's going to take a lot of mindset change. A lot needs to be undone. A lot has to be undone, Marion, because where we are right now, we are still fighting the COVID effects. We are still fighting election effects. They are still high. And just this small spark of when one of the generals died, it's like it was bringing up so many wounds. As in, it's like
that he had
it's like we
done.
were almost going to be in elections again, you people, for real. Because everyone is angry. Everywhere you go, you're in the supermarket, you're in the car, you're driving the
People
street,
are
you're
having that conversation.
people
Anger.
have, as in it's coming out. So it's like the value system, it needs a lot of mindset change. Because right now there's so many effects that people are having, because now we have understood that there are children who haven't even gone back to school ever since COVID. GBV is high, because even now someone is not beating you, they're actually emotionally beating you, they're taking your money. Then we have, as in, it's just a lot. If we really want to have a value system, these things of the effects of COVID, of the elections, they really need to be worked upon, because if we don't, we're just going to have a paper value system. We're going to have them all written, but nothing is going to happen. So I don't know.
I think just maybe to complement on her point, we cannot have a value system if we do not have a country. And I think the bitter truth that we all need to swallow right now is that we don't have a country. We need to rebuild. We need to rebuild a country. Because a value system is nationalistic. Buganda has its value system as a kingdom. I see Nabagereka moving even overseas, going to US, to Germany and so on, to promote those values of Buganda. But what is the value of Uganda as a country? Do we belong together? Do we have a unanimous, do we feel part of Uganda like the way Baganda feel part of Buganda, in a way that they're willing to fight and do everything possible to protect their kingdom? We do not have that same, that unanimous value as Ugandans. The people who are earning are fighting for their income. The ones who are not earning do not care, and they are fighting those who are earning. So we need to find a middle ground. We need to sit down and start with, for me, I think what we need to start with is what national reconciliation, truth-telling and reconciliation. We need to tell each other the truth and reconcile and tell the Asholis, you see, we are sorry, we did this and this, but now let us live together as a country. Buganda, please forgive us, we accept, like the way Uhuru and Raila shook hands, and they said, now let's move on, let's build bridges. They call BBI initiative. Let's build bridges and live together as a country so that we can put an end to these tribal clashes. We need to have a similar thing in Uganda and now start building values. But if you don't have that, someone from the other part of the side of Uganda is going to keep poking into the side of Uganda. Now people who are in, I saw one NRM man trying to undress to counter what is happening. He doesn't understand, he's not having the right conversation. But maybe it will lead us to that reconciliation in which.
Unfortunately, we are fast. Our time is fast spent. So allow you to give us in 1 minute, and strictly actually 10 seconds, your closing remarks so that we can end the show.
Okay, thank you.
10 seconds.
Okay, thank you,
Make it
Marion.
very
But
short.
just okay, I don't know if this will fit into 10 seconds, but for me, the value system that we were talking about, you see, when someone is giving their values, do they have values themselves? Because if this woman in the village is going to understand what the judiciary system is and everything, the government should make deliberate effort to actually make sure there is dissemination of information. There is a very, very wide gap as far as knowledge is concerned. So whatever we are going to do as a country, and also talking about reconciliation for us to get as one country, we need to know that the people that matter, who are the vulnerable, actually understand why we need this.
Okay. So Joyce, 10 seconds, please. 10 seconds.
Well, I don't know how to fit in it, but all I can say is that I like the fact that we are having a conversation around these issues. And I am only wishing for that moment when we are going to all sit down as stakeholders and have the real discussion that is moving forward. Having the value systems that we want to have must be institutionalized, because the people who destroyed them destroyed the institutions. So once, if the judiciary is saying when you come you get justice, there is no way a grandmother who did not even go to school is going to fight that justice. No. The people who are destroying the value system are these guys who understand. The ones who went and read books in Makerere. They're the ones who have destroyed the value system. Now when you don't steal money these days, people think you're stupid. Like, how could that guy work there for 10 years and is that broke? So people think he should also be shoddy.
Sarah, 10 seconds.
I think for me, we need to have these issues all the time. We need to really go back to the drawing board, because social development, 60 years, it's not a small thing. Uganda has done great work, but there's still effects that need to be worked upon. So we need to go back on the drawing board. How can we stop the tribalism? How can we help people in the healthcare system? How can we help the vulnerable people? Because as we know, social development is for vulnerable people. So those things need to be looked at very seriously, so that we don't keep on having these conversations. We need to be now better. So now are we going to come back another 60 years after and we are talking about these same issues? So we really need to really talk, like she has said, look each other in the face and say the truth. We forgive, we move, we really burn the bridges and we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, so you have had it, folks. Reconciliation. Let us have a conversation about it. It's been 60 years. We need to start getting our act together and, solve some of these questions. We cannot come back maybe after 100 years and still complain about the same things. So on this Independence Day on 9th October, I hope that you all reflect. Let us work towards truth and reconciliation and make sure that we have a better Uganda. It's too late to get out of this marriage. We cannot divorce ourselves anytime soon. So catch you next time, same place, here on the Women's Show, Civic Space TV. You can also follow us on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Bye.